There are moments in Formula One where the power shifts aren't measured in lap times, but in the hushed conversations that happen far from the cameras, and right now, Christian Horner, the architect of Red Bull Racing's golden era, is in exactly that position. After more than 2 decades of building an empire that delivered 8 drivers, championships, and 6 constructors' titles, his tenure ended with a shocking and public dismissal. It wasn't just a quiet retirement, it was a removal fueled by internal politics, intense pressure from senior figures, and the shadow of scandals that, despite his eventual clearance, permanently altered his standing inside the team. For Horner, this is no simple career setback. It's a challenge. And in Formula One, a man like him doesn't fade away, he looks for the next battle. That's why whispers are growing louder about talks with Alpine, a team desperate for the kind of leadership that can drag them out of the wilderness. Alpine's situation is dire. The Enstone-based squad, once a proud competitor under the Renault banner, is now adrift at last in the championship, plagued by instability in technical leadership, and with no clear strategy for their future. Their current figurehead, Briatore, is a controversial relic of a bygone era. Infamous for the 2008 Crashgate scandal, Briatore still has his network and charisma, but critics like Ralf Schumacher argue that his style is outdated and ill-suited to modern F1. Schumacher has been blunt. The time for figures like Flavio is over. You need technically skilled people at the top, someone like Horner. His words cut to the core of Alpine's dilemma. They don't just need a boss, they need a visionary who can rebuild the culture from the ground up, a leader who knows what it takes to turn a struggling team into a title contender. For Horner, Alpine is more than just a job opportunity, it's a stage for redemption and revenge. Walking into Red Bull's rival garage, taking control, and turning it into a winning operation would be the ultimate statement to those who pushed him out. The circumstances align perfectly. Alpine is in flux, with ownership open to selling, a significant portion of the team to attract the right kind of leadership that opens a door for Horner to not just run a team, but to own part of it, securing the power and protection that he lacked at Red Bull when the politics closed in. But ownership in Formula One doesn't come cheap. Reports suggest Alpine could be looking for an investor willing to bring around $20 million to the table. Horner doesn't have that kind of liquidity sitting idle. But after 20 years at the top of one of the sport's most marketable teams, he has no shortage of high contacts who might back his next move. The idea of Horner as a part owner isn't just speculation, it's a logical progression. Men like Toto Wolff at Mercedes and Lawrence Stroll at Aston Martin have proven that being a shareholder changes the game. It gives you a stake in the success, a layer of protection from boardroom coups, and the freedom to build long-term. For Horner, Alpine could be the beginning of that chapter. While Horner's potential arrival at Alpine has excited many, there are some who believe it's not as straightforward as it seems. One of the loudest voices of skepticism is none other than Bernie Ecclestone, the former F1 Supremo and a longtime ally of Horner. Ecclestone has gone on record saying he believes in Lewis Hamilton winning an 8th world title more than he believes in Horner becoming a shareholder at Alpine. His reasoning, the money factor. Owning a stake in a Formula One team is an entirely different game from running one. Horner has the experience, the trophies, and the leadership qualities, but he would still need to secure substantial investment to buy into Alpine's structure. Without that financial backing, Ecclestone argues, the move remains wishful thinking. But others, like former driver Robert Dornbos, who worked with Horner earlier in his career, see this as inevitable. Dornbos points out that Horner is still young by F1 leadership standards, just 51 years old, with over 2 decades of experience running one of the sport's largest and most successful outfits. He's seen every side of the sport from the paddock politics to the marketing machine, and he's proven he can navigate both. The only role he hasn't held yet is that of a team owner. Dornbos believes Horner is driven by challenge, and Alpine, with its desperate need for restructuring, could be the perfect test. The political backdrop makes this even more compelling. At Red Bull, Horner survived countless on-track battles but ultimately fell victim to off-track warfare. Despite being cleared by both independent investigations and the courts, the internal pressure, especially from figures like Jos Verstappen and Helmut Marko, was enough to push him out. The timing was ruthless, coming after key figures like Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, and Hannah Schmitz had already walked away, leaving a perception that Red Bull's golden era was crumbling. For Horner, stepping into Alpine's garage wouldn't just be about proving himself again, would be about showing Red Bull exactly what they've lost. From Alpine's perspective, the attraction is obvious. They're about to become a Mercedes customer team from next year, signaling that they're ready to cut costs and embrace big changes. They need a proven strategist to lead that transformation. Horner's track record of building not just a fast car, but a winning culture could be their golden ticket. And while replacing Briatore would be politically messy, it's not unthinkable. The sport has moved on, and the appetite for fresh leadership is growing. If the ownership group truly wants to turn things around before 2026's regulation reset, bringing in Horner could be their most decisive move in years. Still, there's a human element to all of this, a layer of tension that goes beyond corporate strategy and financial deals. One of Alpine's star drivers, Pierre Gasly, has his own complicated history with Horner. Back in 2019, Gasly was promoted to Red Bull's senior team mid-season, only to be demoted back to Toro Rosso after just half a season. Many felt he was never given the time to adapt to the car, and the abrupt decision was widely criticized. Gasly rebuilt his career outside of Red Bull's system, even delivering an emotional victory at Monza in 2024, AlphaTauri, but the scars of that early setback remain. While Gasly has publicly acknowledged Horner's undeniable leadership skills and historic success, there's no question that working under him again would be complicated. In Alpine's current situation, Gasly is essentially the team's anchor. Their second seat has been a revolving door, with inconsistent performances and no clear long-term partner for him. That makes Gasly's voice unusually powerful in internal discussions. If the team is considering a seismic move like bringing in Horner possibly with Partoner, it's hard to imagine they wouldn't weigh how their lead driver feels about it. Alienating Gasly could backfire, especially when morale is already fragile. The irony here is sharp. Horner could be the man to save Alpine, but also the man whose history might create tension before a single race is run. This kind of dynamic is not unusual in F1. Teams have often had to balance the benefits of leadership changes with the sensitivities of key personnel, but Alpine doesn't have the luxury of moving slowly. They are losing ground every race weekend, and 2026's regulation changes will be here before they know it. Horner's arrival would send shockwaves through the paddock, potentially attracting more talent to the team both in the garage and at the factory. It could signal to sponsors that Alpine is serious about fighting at the front again, something that has been hard to believe in recent years. Horner, for his part, has never shied away from difficult relationships. Whether defending his drivers, in public disputes or challenging the FIA directly, he has built a reputation as a fighter who protects his own. Those close to him point to moments like the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, where he came armed with photographic evidence to defend Max Verstappen in a stewarding dispute. That kind of commitment could be exactly what Alpine needs, but it's also the kind of intensity that can rub people the wrong way. In a fragile environment, it's a gamble. And in F1, gambles can either transform a team's fortunes or sink them further into the abyss. If we zoom out, this potential Horner-Alpine partnership is about far more than just one man's career move. It's about the shifting balance of power in Formula One. Over the past decade, team bosses have become almost as famous as the drivers. Figures like Toto Wolff, Lawrence Stroll, and Zach Brown aren't just leaders, they're brand builders, investors, and political operators. Horner has always been part of that elite group, but unlike his rivals, he's never had the protection that comes with owning a stake in the team. At Red Bull, he was an employee powerful, yes, but still answerable to owners who could remove in him when the internal politics became too heavy. Alpine could change that. Ownership changes everything. It doesn't just give you authority, it gives you security. Wolff at Mercedes is a prime example. His stake in the team ensures that even in turbulent times, his position is protected by the financial and strategic weight he brings to the table. For Horner, buying into Alpine wouldn't just be about leading the team. It would be about ensuring that no boardroom intrigue could end his tenure prematurely. It would be the final evolution of his career, moving from celebrated team principal to true power player. And Alpine, in their current state, might be the only realistic opportunity for him to make that leap. Other teams are either too stable to consider such a change or too far removed from contention to make it worth his while. Alpine sits in that rare middle ground. They have infrastructure, a storied past, and a desperate need for reinvention. In that desperation lies opportunity. If Horner could negotiate a deal that brought in outside investors to back his share purchase, he could walk into Enstone with not just a plan, but the authority to execute it without compromise. Of course, for all the upside, the risks are enormous. Alpine's struggles aren't just about leadership, they've been plagued by technical missteps, slow development cycles, and an inability to keep pace with the top team's innovation. Even with Horner at the helm, turning them into a outfit would take years, not months. And in F1, patience is a rare commodity. The question is whether Horner is ready to commit to a long-term rebuild, knowing that his every move would be scrutinized by both fans and rivals, eager to see if the Red Bull magic can be replicated elsewhere. As the rumors swirl, one thing is clear, this isn't just about a man finding his next job, this is about legacy. Christian Horner's career has been defined by winning, by building an underdog energy drink team into a dynasty that toppled the giants of Formula One. Being forced out of that empire, regardless of the official reasoning, is a wound that will take more than time to heal. Joining Alpine, especially as an owner, would give him the chance to write a final, dramatic chapter on his own terms. It would be a direct message to Red Bull: you can remove me, but you can't erase what I can do. The 2026 regulations will reset the playing field, and Alpine's Mercedes engine deal means they could have the power unit to compete if the chassis and operations are brought up to standard. Horner knows how to build those systems. He knows how to attract the right technical talent, how to create an environment where engineers can innovate without fear. and how to play the political game to protect his team's interests. The appeal is obvious, but so are the obstacles, political and personal. Flavio Briatore is still in the picture. Pierre Gasly's approval could be a factor, and the investors Horner needs might not be easy to convince. And yet, in the history of Formula One, it's often the bold moves made, in moments of chaos that reshape the sport. If Horner walks into Alpine, it will send shockwaves through the paddock, changing the dynamics not just between those two teams, but across the grid. Red Bull would suddenly face a rival led by the man who knows them better than anyone. Sponsors, media, and fans would be watching every result, every strategy call, every press conference. The pressure would be immense, but so would the potential reward. Ultimately, whether this happens will come down to two things: whether Alpine's leadership is willing to make a clean break with the past, and whether Horner can assemble the financial backing to take a real stake in the team. If both sides find common ground, Formula One could be on the brink of one of its most fascinating transformations in years. And if it doesn't happen, then Horner's next move will still be one of the sport's most closely watched stories, because men like Christian Horner don't just disappear from Formula One, they wait. They plan, and when the moment comes, they strike. And that's why, whatever happens next, the paddock will be holding its breath. So tell us, Stu, you think Horner could really turn Alpine into a title contender? Or is this just another headline that will fade away? Share your thoughts below. And if you're as fascinated by this story as we are, make sure to subscribe because, if this deal goes through, the next chapter will be even more explosive.